Good evening, my viewers. This is George Ondek with the latest edition of the George Ondek Show. Tonight I'm being sponsored by La Valletta of Peekskill, La Valletta 2, and I want to do a shout out to Angelo. But I have three handsome men on the show with me tonight, and I'm doing my feature, Meet the Candidates. I have Chris Hanslick, Vinny Boo Vesey, and Joe Torres, Republican candidates for council in Peekskill. I'll start off with Chris. Chris, you want to introduce yourself and why you're running for council this year in Peekskill, along with mayoral candidate Frank Catalina. You're part of the Catalina team.
That's right. We're a part of the Catalina team. First of all, George, thanks for having us on. This is really appreciated. My name is Chris Hanslick. I am a 18-and-a-half-year resident of Peekskill. I moved here in 1994. I have a wife, wonderful wife, Esther. I have two teenage children. Jonathan is my son. He's going to be 18 in a couple of months, and my daughter is 14. And right now, I am the current president of the board of directors for the Peekskill Apollo Little League. We just celebrated our 50th season of Little League baseball in Peekskill.
And you volunteer for that, right?
It's a strictly volunteer position, yes, and one I've loved for a long time. I've been on the board for almost 10
You're
years.
up there with one of my neighbors from Society Hill, too. Can't think of his name.
Oh, John Pagan.
Yeah, great guy,
Yeah.
him and his wife.
Yeah, Joe Dixie DeChristopher, and we've been.
And I understand you play a little softball too. I saw you on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, well,
representing Society Hill too.
Actually, it's an interesting league because that league was formed about 15 years ago, outside of the realm of the city. It's not a city-sponsored softball league. It's
Right.
totally run privately. We pay money towards insurance and shirts and everything, and we actually pay towards a permit to use the Depew Park softball or baseball fields up there. So I used to play baseball back in college, so now I'm still trying to hang on to that bit of glory from
Well, if
my
I
college
get up
days.
one day and want to be a batter designated runner, because being
I
a disabled
think I could-
70 years old, I might still be able to hit the ball, but I can't
I
run.
think I could handle that. I can still handle that.
And so you have a big stake in Peekskill, and that's why you've decided to
Well,
run.
why I decided to run is I've been involved basically for most of my time here. I mean, I'm not born and raised here, but this is my hometown. I've been involved. I've been very, very fortunate to become involved. I was I was a member of the planning board for 14 years here in town. I was vice chair and chair as late as 2009. I ran for mayor 4 years ago against the current
I hear you
administration.
came close, too.
Within 5 percentage points.
That's close.
Yeah. I mean, considering the fact that we really didn't have a lot of money in the campaign, but we had the issues, and I think we just, looking back, I wish we had pulled the vote a little better than we did, but we definitely had a great team and a great platform to run on, and actually, one of the reasons I besides the fact that Frank asked me,
Frank Catalina
asked me to be his running mate again, which I was honored. A lot of the things we talked about 4 years ago have come to fruition, not necessarily in a good way. So I felt like it was time to kind of step up again and really try to take those issues, bring them up, remind people again why things are where they are right now, and then say with this team of running mates that I have that we can do better. So that's my main reason for running.
And we have Mr. Vincent Boo Vesey here, which is a well-known name in Peekskill. It seems to me I remember Vincent Vesey, who was mayor of Peekskill and who was a strong supporter of Governor George E. Pataki.
Right, about 20 years ago, I'd say now, but yes, and I know you've been asking me about this Boo
this
name,
nickname,
so
Boo, you have to say
get this
yay.
right on the record.
A lot
So
of people have asked me that.
and some say, well, we're trying to differentiate myself from my father a little bit, but the reality is that my mother actually gave me that name when I was an infant as a nickname. It seemed to have stuck over the years.
So it's not on your birth certificate?
No, I'm Vincent Andrew. My father's Vincent Christopher, but it's just a name that had stuck, and my father was always Vincent, so it was just a name people called me other than my father's name in the house, and went through school with it. And outside of this town, everybody knows me as Vinny, but inside this town, especially the people I grew up with, my father's Vinny and I'm Boo.
Like in my family, there's 5 Georges.
Right.
Grandfather, father, me, my son George Michael and his son George
That
Michael.
sounds like the George Foreman family.
Yeah.
Everybody's named George,
Well,
right?
I'm actually one of four. My son is Vincent as well.
Right, that's right,
Vinny,
that's
your
right.
father was a very powerful and good political figure in Peekskill. What made you decide at this time to run for council? Do you want to make a difference in what you see with the present
Well,
administration?
I'll tell you, and similar to Chris and Joe here and Frank as well. I mean, I was born and raised here. I'm 42 years old.
Right.
I have my wife Jolene. We live here in town with our 3 children. I have a daughter who's 15, my son is 12, and another daughter who's 5. And you know, growing up in this town was the best experience I could have. And to tell you the truth, a lot of people have asked me, and I've went to boarding school in New Jersey after I went to Peekskill High School for a couple of years and went to college in Florida. And people say, well, why do you move back to New York? Why do you move back to Peekskill? And I said, well, this is my hometown. And not only that, I know everybody here, so why do I want to live somewhere I don't know anybody, you know? You go to the same deli every morning and get your coffee, you know everybody there. You go to take the train into the city, you know everybody on the train, or just on the weekends you're associating yourselves with people you grew up with, you know, went to the Assumption School from kindergarten to 8th grade, and have a lot of strong ties to this community. As you know, not only my father, but my grandfather, and my great-grandfather.
Was he a doctor? Or?
My grandfather was a doctor for over
Wow.
40 years in this town. And my great-grandfather, who brought everybody up here, who was from Italy originally, we lived at 201 Union Avenue where my grandfather had his doctor's office, and I lived upstairs, and that's where I grew up and walked to the Assumption School
And
every
do you
day.
like the direction the city is going under the
Well-
present Democratic? We have 7 Democrats, and when the mayor proposes something, it appears like they all go along with whatever the mayor says.
Yeah.
You know, there's some discussion against what she says, but it seems to go the way the mayor wants.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, you know, even though I was brought up in a political atmosphere with my
Right,
father being
right.
involved in politics, I never tended to kind of get towards politics. You know, I'm a businessman. I own my own business.
What kind of business are you in?
Well, I worked for the Port Authority of New York and
Wow.
New Jersey, which is a bi-state agency
Yes.
Running the airport systems
Wow.
in New York and New
Big job.
Jersey. JFK, LaGuardia, Newark. We have
Wow.
Stewart Airport, now Atlantic City. Worked there for 15 years and ran operations there. And I look at an airport like Kennedy, where I spent most of my time, 7 years, as a small city. I managed over 2,000 employees, both union and non-union. I know the issues related to that. We had our own fire department. We had our own police department. We have our own engineering department. So very familiar with the day-to-day operations of running a semi-small city. You know, we had 65,000 people a day that work at Kennedy Airport.
Wow.
And
That's
my responsibility.
Twice the size of Peekskill.
I'll tell you, I mean, we talk about these budgets, and you know, I was in charge of an operation with over $250 million in contract value.
Wow.
Budgets of revenue budgets over $300 million. So I have contracts, one contract that was $30 million a year.
So you know
and
how
I
to
manage
deal
that.
with
So,
business and
you know,
running
with that,
a city or running a little city.
Exactly, and I saw the direction the city was going in. And I was fortunate enough, I was able to resign my job and open my own business about 2 years ago now as a consultant back to the aviation business.
Wow.
And you know, what I do is I represent clients who do business nationally in airports all over the country and all over the world. A lot of that is developing new business for them or handling projects for them in all different aspects of, you know, running an airport system. So I see this, I saw what was going on here in town and the feeling that I got over the last 5 years. Now, the financial situation is one you can't hide from. We all know it's there. They can play the games they want to play with. They can play the numbers games on a ledger sheet. But the reality is you see the results around town. I see it because you know, when you live somewhere your whole life and you start to see little things like the 2 clay tennis courts in the Depew Park going without nets and weeds growing on them. You see, you know, the garbage pickup go from a couple times a week when we were younger to now down to 1 day a week. When you see your bulk trash pickup being done every other month instead of once a week or once a month, you start to see all the issues that are apparently come from the way this administration has been running this city, and I feel it was time to get involved. You know, I have a big investment here in my home and everything else, and I just couldn't ignore the fact anymore that there's a different feeling in this town, and it's not one I was used to.
Vinny, I want to tell you a little aside. I'm a 24-year resident of Peekskill. I love Peekskill. I've seen it change quite a bit in the past 6 years, and I don't like what I've seen happen. I live in a condominium in Peekskill. We have triple taxation for garbage now.
Right.
We didn't have that before. We have to pay a carter to pick up our garbage. On Saturday, we have to pick our bulk items up, and garbage is part of your regular taxes, I believe.
It's essential city services. That's what it is.
Right.
You know?
And
it's one of the core
I had the
responsibilities of an
opportunity, Vinny,
administration.
my wife and I, to move to Palm Beach, Florida. We lived there 3 years, but we liked Peekskill so much we came back here. And I want to keep it the best it can possibly be.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm presenting everyone who wants to come on my show with their ideas on how to better Peekskill.
Right.
And now you have another handsome man down the end here, Joe Torres. You're running as a councilman on the Catalina team for the first time. Maybe, Joe, you want to tell my audience a little bit?
Sure. I'd like to thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, it's my honor
And,
to present.
It's a privilege anyway. And, you know, I was up here I moved up here when I was 11 years old, and I've been here for quite a long time. I built a house here, a brand new house, you know, about 10 years ago, and I felt it was worth investing in Peekskill and staying here, where all my other friends have moved out. And, you know, and it's an excellent city, has a lot of potential, but within the last few years, I think it's drastically gone downhill, you know, as far as the quality of life and the way that things are being run right now. And I feel I can make a difference along the riverfront. I think it's a great city, has a lot of potential.
Do you think it's important for not only you, Mr. Hanslick, and Mr. Vesey to win this year, but the entire Catalina team, and why do you feel that the entire team must win to make a difference? Any one of the three of you.
I think it's very important that we all, you know, to make changes that we want to make, which is, you know, a good positive change for the city, to make the city a destination. I think it's important that we all get in so we can make the change, because if only some of us get in, it's not going to be able.
Mr. Torres, you're a business owner, is
Yes,
that
I
correct?
own a business.
So you know how a business
for about 30
operates.
years, and I've been running my business for over 30
And
years.
the city is a business.
The city, you have to run the city like a business if you want to, you know, make it profitable. Where
For instance,
you
we
keep taxes
have
down.
a person who was hired as a public relations man. Does Peekskill really need a $40,000 public relations person 6 months?
If it brings you instant value, yes. If it doesn't, then it's a waste of money. That's all I can tell you.
Or do they need a landscaping person to plant 20 plants at the cost of $17,000 a year when they can be bought in Home Depot for $20 a plant, and the gardening club could.
Yes,
could
you can
do it.
promote stuff
It sounds
like
like a waste of the taxpayers'
Well, it's
money.
funny. All the examples you're bringing up are examples of what we have noticed about the administration, and basically, it's not just the spending of the money; it's the wasteful spending of the money.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Oh.
we can talk towards issues like the fact that you know, we've had there was a $10 million or $11 million fund balance in place when the mayor and her administration took office,
Right.
which is now gone.
It is?
It's completely
Entirely
gone.
gone?
And this is according to Moody's. I'm not just speaking, you know,
Didn't
off
we get a reduction in our
credit rating, yes.
credit rating recent?
by 2 grades.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, according to Moody's, it was A1 as late as 2011. It has gone down from A1 to AA3, which is 2 drops in the bond grades in 2 years.
Wow.
And this is as a result of not just the reduction in the fund balance, it's also about the fact that the debt service has gone from $1.9 million to $3 million a year in the last 2 years.
Doesn't that cost the taxpayers a lot?
Of course
more?
it does.
Sure. We have to
And because that debt service is like a credit card. You have to pay that off first. Before the city can assign any revenues or the revenues to anything else, they have to pay the debt service first. So the higher the debt service goes, the lesser amount there is for the things like cutting grass and taking care of the roads and the sewers and the sidewalks and things like
Speaking
that.
of the roads, thousands of people go down the Riverfront Green to these festivals we have. They haven't even paved that road. It's full of potholes. I live right next to what Dayton Lane, and it's full of potholes. They just patched it.
George, you can go around this city and you'll see the sidewalks are coming up all over the place. You'll see the roads in the condition you're talking about. And now we've gotten to a point in this city with the reduction in staff that occurred here at the end of last year.
That 29 people that were let
That's
go.
right.
What do you
29
think about
people,
that?
but probably closer to 40 actual
Really?
positions that
Well,
have been
right,
abolished.
by the time you,
Mr. Vesey?
And the reality is this, and you're seeing the effect that that has had now on this city. Okay, you know, you let 25-year veterans go that
Right.
you know of the city that knew the city, knew how the city operated, and now you're hiring outside people to try to accommodate and bring that institutional knowledge back. You just can't get that.
No.
And to tell you the truth, you know, at least in my case, you know, I see it's almost taken an effect on this workforce we currently has, and it's demoralized them. You know, you talk to
When you
anybody.
take the most experienced person in the assessment office, a tax
Listen.
professional, out,
It goes on and on. You do, you know, you merge the Parks Department with DPW. Now you got these guys out on Saturdays on overtime cutting grass because they don't have enough manpower to get to it
and
during
you
a
take
regular
a
work
park enforcement officer out who's probably bringing in more than he was getting paid. Does that make sense?
no,
No,
it's
it
not
doesn't
at
make
all.
sense.
There's more and more examples of the mismanagement of this city than you could, you know.
Yeah,
You could
I
shake
mean,
a
plus
stick
all
at.
the money spent on consultants and special
Oh,
counsels
yeah.
and all the things that have not brought any sort of tangible benefit to the city over the last 2-3
Has
years in
any other
particular.
mayor spent the amount of money this mayor is spending on outside consultants and legal fees because there's been lawsuits against the city?
It's
from what
our
I
understanding, we've been able to find out through different FOIL requests in our forensic team that there's over 200 lawsuits pending against the city of
City of
Peekskill
Peekskill.
right
God,
now.
Right now.
You're kidding me.
Right now.
Is that normal? But
Not that I know about.
I can't imagine that it's anywhere
there was
near
a
normal.
report by someone, I don't know if it's true or not, that over $4 million has been spent by the Forster administration
On consultants.
since she came in office on legal fees, attorneys, and consultants.
George,
Sure.
we'll just ask you this.
Go ahead.
$11 million.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything in this city that has shown that $11 million has been invested in a positive way?
No.
Because I can't.
Down the riverfront, the big riverfront project, all I see is green grass on one end of the.
Well,
Yeah.
you know.
And the other thing to take towards that financial thing too is you've not seen any tangible returns on the spending, but
Nothing.
at the same time, this whole idea that they've laid off all these people last year and want to blame it on rising health care and pension costs, those were known about back in 2008 when she took over office. So she was fully aware 3.5 years later, that those were coming to roost, and yet they still spent the
How
money.
about the city getting into the real estate business and buying the Cartelemi property at full value, something like $4 million? Do you want to discuss that? a
Well,
little bit,
and
or-
you know very well
Okay.
about this, but
Yeah.
I'll just say as a businessman
Yeah.
and as a developer in capital projects for the state,
Yes.
which I had responsibility for at the airports, and to purchase a piece of property without a proper environmental assessment, especially an old dump, and now we're stuck
Full oil,
with
yeah.
$4 to $5 million in cleanup costs that we know of.
Right.
Okay. And
Plus, it's
still,
off the tax roll because the city owns it.
and,
That's right.
and
We're
there's
lost in three ways. The money,
Listen.
it's off the tax roll, and the cleanup
And
the
not
costs.
city's one of
Exactly.
the biggest real estate owners in this city.
Yeah.
That's the sad part about it.
And not only that, but it
Mr.
was.
Torres, what do you think is one of the most pressing issues that the Catalina team will address?
I think it's going to be our finances. I think our
Finances.
finances are in pretty bad shape. I think you're gonna see it
Until
come.
we stable the ship here,
Yeah.
until we really get in here and see the damage that has been done over the last 5 to 6 years, you know, we know what's waiting for us, but we're not really sure how deep this goes. Because, as you know, listen, this mayor's an accountant, okay?
Yeah, oh.
So you can make things look pretty good on a piece of paper.
There was a book that I quote once in a while, How to Lie with Statistics. It's taught in Economics 101.
I've heard you talk about that many times at the council meetings, yes.
I mean, you can tell condo owners they're not paying their fair share of taxes, But if they're paying common charges, I pay almost $5,000 a year common charges
Wow.
that aren't able to be written off on
Right.
taxes.
Right.
And we got to pick up our own garbage service now. If our roads go, we got to pay for it.
That's
But when
right.
she presented the issue to us condo owners, she forgot to leave, she left that out. Or she wants to do revaluation of property in Peekskill. Do you know that means somebody who owns a property for 50 or 100 years, they're going to get hit hard if they revalue.
Yeah.
And
sure.
she doesn't care about a senior on a fixed income. But what do you all feel the most pressing issues are? And here's a big question for you, Mr. Torres.
Sure.
And this is sort of a funny one.
Okay.
There's a Democrat liberal running named Torres. How are you going to differentiate yourself?
All I can tell you is
From him
it's on row
working-
B.
Oh, row B, that's a good one. The Torres on row
Maybe row
Don't go
C.
ahead,
Maybe
just go
row,
B.
yeah, we
We
don't-
don't know what row they're going to be.
the
But I
one-
think it's going to be row B.
the one who isn't a tax and spend liberal and who won't rubber stamp Mayor Forster.
Right.
That's right. I will
Right.
not do that. Sure.
Right.
What does the Catalina team plan to do for Peekskill that's different, that's not being done now?
Well, certainly, you know, to go back to what we've talked about already about the finances, we got to stop the wasteful spending first,
Right.
and we have to get under control the spending and find out where we are with revenues. You know, it's a balance sheet. Revenues have to be less than or equal to. I mean, revenues have to be greater than or equal to the expenses, or else we're in trouble, and we're borrowing. So.
You know, she had something changed in the past year, that you can take funds from any other department and use them in another
That's
fund.
been going on since 2008 when I ran for office.
Really?
One of the very first things she did back in
Mixes it
2008,
up.
2009 is she took $1.5 million from the water fund and called it a tax equalization fund.
Wow.
And she actually borrowed, apparently, if I remember correctly, from one of their own pieces of literature, they borrowed money from the water fund to pay for the La Placita Market, which was on Main Street, which was one of the properties that they bought as part of the Central Firehouse. So they've been doing that for a long time, and they've been doing it quite stealthily, as a matter of
I
fact.
got to ask you, what is the Catalina team's position on the proposed methadone clinic that the mayor's planning director and planning board passed for Peekskill?
Well,
Totally against it.
Yeah,
I'll
I
be
mean,
honest,
we're
totally
you-
Can it be stopped still?
no, well, first of all, we definitely are against the clinic.
Right.
We don't understand why it could not have stayed at Hudson Valley
The
Hospital.
mayor claims
which
she
is
had
most
no
accessible.
knowledge whatsoever of it. Do you
I
find that hard to
wholeheartedly
believe?
disagree with that, because as a former member of the planning board and the chairman of the planning board, there was always a liaison discussion between the commission and the council.
Interesting.
If more times than enough, the mayor and the council knew everything that we were seeing on our agenda, and a lot of times, some of those applications were referred by the council to us for deliberation on planning issues. So for them to say that all of a sudden they knew nothing about it is a total lie.
We have a cable channel, the government channel, that's paid for by the taxpayers. Do you feel that the mayor and the council running mates with her should be seen on that, other than the council meetings or the committee of the whole meetings during this
During the
election
cycle, they
period?
should
Yeah, they're
recuse
not
Isn't
supposed
it
to.
an
They
unfair
should recuse
advantage?
Yes,
themselves.
it is.
And I think it's wrong to bring politicians in from New Rochelle to be seen on our government channel.
And to speak for that matter, I
And to
guess.
speak,
Yeah.
yeah.
George, just to get back
Go-
on this
okay.
methadone clinic thing
Yes.
too, because as an application comes across to the building department or into the city council,
Yes.
you know, there's ways to work with developers that may want to develop something in the
Right.
city like that in an appropriate area of the city where it doesn't impact the citizenry. And these are the types of things and the way that this city is being managed. It's almost, you know, being, there's no concern here for the citizens. They know better than everybody else.
Oh.
They don't work with anybody. They don't discuss anything. You see what happens at these council meetings. You know, if week after week we see the same people up there, yourself included, with the
Yes,
same issues.
Because I'm a proven tax
Instead
fighter.
of handling those issues on a one-on-one basis with that individual, or a person that can be assigned to meet with them at City Hall during the week and resolve that citizen's issue, maybe not to their liking, but at least they get a real answer.
Is that what the
you
Catalina
wouldn't have to
team
come
would
back
do?
every week and complain about the same
Vinny,
issue.
do we have
That's
your
what I would do.
vow if you're
Absolutely.
voted in.
And by the way, that's the way things used
Not
to
only
work
his,
in this
but mine
town.
also.
Yeah, we never needed 4 or 5,
Those
6
issues, and
police officers.
you've seen those council meetings way back when get pretty contentious.
Yeah.
But you know what? People were treated with respect, and their issues were dealt with in a professional manner.
And all we had
and that
was
will be brought
the
back to
chief
the
of
city
police at our council meetings. You weren't under
Well, as a head as a head of a department, that person has to be there.
Yes.
Now, I'm not so sure they need to be there to provide security. They need to be there to give an update or to answer a citizen on a particular issue related to their
To the
department's
police.
job. Other than that, you know.
But people have been told me who went to the meetings recently, if you laugh or if you boo, you're told to shut up, that you don't have freedom of speech.
The
it
reality
seems like.
is, it's gotten to a point where it shouldn't have. And
Right.
if you were able to deal with people and manage that situation,
It seems
you
like she
wouldn't have the
can't
problem.
handle people, so she has to need police enforcement at the council.
You said it, I didn't.
It seems, I said it seems to me too.
Yeah, right.
But that's kind of sad because no other community in Westchester is like that.
Yeah.
But with that, we're getting near the end of the show. Do you each for about a minute, can you wrap up why you're running for councilman and why Peekskill needs you?
I think Peekskill needs us because we certainly want to stop what the administration's been doing. We want to stop the wasteful spending. We want to stop the mismanagement. We want to bring in the type of tangible, large-scale economic development that's going to improve the tax base, bring in revenues, and also work to the benefit of all residents of the city of Peekskill. We, at least from my perspective, and I know I'm speaking for the team too, is, we're the common sense team. I mean, we're very diverse but very experienced in a lot of different ways. I'm a civil engineer by background. I work with developers, so I can bring that to the table with my planning board experience, as Boo and Joe have said.
And you're Chris Hansley.
And I'm Chris
And
Hansley.
people should vote for you.
And they have to vote for me and
Let's
everybody.
hear a minute
That's
of
right.
Vinnie
And-
Vesey here,
and
and
I-
why
and,
they
uh,
should vote for him.
I will tell you this, that this is probably one of the most important elections that Peekskill is going to have seen in a long time. The financial situation that this city is in, we are on the verge of bankruptcy. Make that no mistake, okay? You can spin it any way you want to spin it. If this continues the way it's been continuing, not only the essential city services will continue to decline, but this city will be in serious financial
And
condition.
imagine 29 people, women mostly from City Hall, were laid off by this mayor.
It's a travesty.
That
I'll
means
tell
we're
you.
getting much less services for our
Absolutely.
money, too.
Yes.
Joe
I
Torres.
want to see.
1 minute left,
I want to
Joe.
see the city change where people want to come here, and I want to see this city become a destination where people want to move their families. They want to come here to visit because it's a great city to visit, and we've been stagnant too long, and we've been sitting basically with nothing going on in the city for years, and I think we have to turn around and make it a great city again.
We got to make it the historic
A historic
Peekskill
city. See all the other river towns, villages.
that we had under Mr. Vincent Vesey and Mr. George E. Pataki in the old days. With that, fellas, I want to thank
Thank
you
you.
for being on the
Thank you,
George
George.
Ondek
Appreciate
Show.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being
Thank you.
Meet the Candidates. Until next time, it's been George Ondek with the Republican team of Peekskill. And in all honesty, I am a registered Republican, but I put my show out to anybody who wants to come on. It's Meet the Candidates, and we'll see you next time. And make sure you get out and vote in November.
The whole
Good luck,
team.
guys. Good
The
luck.
whole
So
team,
you
yeah.
need the whole team. Frank Catalina especially.
And don't assume that your vote doesn't count, even if you disagree with what's going on.
Every
here,
vote
because
counts.
every vote
Till
counts.
next-